I prepared some thoughts. Before I read these thoughts, I just want to say that death, dying, is one of those things that are very, very difficult for young people to handle. The real truth of the matter is, young people should not know about death. The first time somebody died in my life, I was 10 years old. My grandfather, my father's father died. That's the first time I met death. A lot of people meet death a lot younger. But even if a person meets death as a teenager, especially if it's close to you, God forbid a person loses a parent, like in this case, young people are not equipped to deal with death. And psychologists will tell you that when a person encounters a loss like this, or any kind of loss, but especially something as severe as this, and they don't process it, they bury it. And in some psychological ways, they remain that age for the rest of their life. Whatever age they were that they experienced that loss, they're stuck in that space emotionally unless they go back to it and bring it up and mourn. Young people, I don't only mean little kids, I mean you. Young people are not equipped to deal with death. The truth is nobody's equipped to deal with death. But especially young people, and I'll tell you why. Because you cannot process death in your mind. Impossible. The brain cannot understand death. The brain understands death very well, but it doesn't understand the consequences of death, loss. There's a very big difference between being smart and being wise. Smart means you have a good brain, you can ask good questions, you can give good answers, you can solve problems, you can create technology, you can create machines, you can create businesses. The human mind is a great tool that can be used for many purposes. Some things, being smart doesn't help at all. The biggest geniuses in the world, when it comes to some things, are like children. Because death cannot be processed by the intelligent mind, it has to be processed by the spiritual mind, but it's called wisdom. Wisdom, sometimes people who are very unintelligent, their IQ is very low, and they're very rich in wisdom. And other people are very smart and they lack wisdom. Processing things as enormous as death, issues that do with the basis of life itself, the intellectual brain doesn't have the tools to process it. And from my observation and my experience, and I really mean this, I don't say this to make you feel good, I think it's true. Young people are smarter than old people. Just like young people are stronger than old people, young people are smarter. Your brain works a lot better than mine does. When I was your age, I was quicker and sharper and had a better memory than I have now by far. But wisdom, that means what happens through living life and gaining experiences. And the experiences of life inform you, not on an intellectual level, I have more information, I can explain things better. But they inform you in terms of what life is fundamentally, which is called wisdom. This is something that people who are older are better at. It's just how the game is. So death is not meant for young people. Out to mention, we're supposed to lose even older parents. Not chas v'sholem, a tragedy like we had last week. There was a levaya one day for a woman who was 99. There was a levaya the next day for a man who was 93. And there was a levaya the day after that for a man who was 57. You can't even compare. So when young people experience death, unless somebody forces them, they push it aside, they ignore it. It doesn't go away. It remains there. It remains in their subconscious, and it's not good. It's very hard to know how to deal with these kinds of things. Because you can't deal with them by you can't solve problems, You know the difference between a man and a woman. A woman's number one reason for not speaking to her husband about an issue. Ever heard the reason? If I come to my husband and I give him a problem, he gives me a solution. I didn't ask him for a solution, I asked him to listen to me. Women talk things over, not because they want answers, because they want to talk. A man is a problem solver. You understand? Oh, you have a problem, we fix it. And the girls are there, I don't want you to fix my problem, I want you to listen. And the guy says, what's the point? You see the difference? This is intelligence, this is wisdom. It's two different things. And as we get older, I think we become wiser, unless we insist on remaining little children. So I wrote some thoughts for this. I have two big questions. Question number one, what does Torah say about death, especially tragedy like this? And question number two, what do we say to Torah, what do we say to God about this, about tragedy? And I'm going to share some thoughts. I prepared myself. I'm going to share some thoughts. I'm just going to ask you to allow me to finish. We'll do a half a talk, then I'll give you a chance to make comments, and then we'll do the second half a talk, okay? We'll talk about first, what does Torah say about death? And I would like you to bear in mind what I just told you. Bechlal, Torah is a brilliant book. Torah is intellectually the greatest book ever written. It was written by God. But what makes Torah is not that it's smart. What makes Torah is the fact that it's wise. Torah is not an intellectual book. It's a book written by God for man, for human beings. And a human being is not a brain. A human being is a mind and a heart. And in the Lashon Chassidus, a nihi. Chabad is the brain, Chagas is the heart, and nihi would be whatever. The liver, the kidneys, depends which mimer you're learning. The lower third of the person. Torah informs the whole person. It informs life. There's a part of Torah which is very intellectual. But the intellect of Torah is serving Torah. Torah is a book of wisdom. It's a book of life. It's really true. It's not just a cliche. It's not just what you say to make Torah sound better than other books. It's actually true. And Torah talks about death. And when Torah talks about death, the perspective that Torah gives on death, it's not about defending God. It's not about making God right. It's about teaching people how we manage when things happen in our lives that we're not meant to manage. So the first thing about death was in Pashat in last week's Pashat. That Adam loses his sons in a fire. He's devastated. It's the most important day of his life. You understand that? There was no day in Adam's life that was more important than that day. That was the day he became a Kohen Gadol. That's the day he was forgiven for making the Egel Azov. That was the day the Eibishter moved into the Beis HaMikdash and filled the house of God that man had built with his presence, with the Shechina and the Kaddish of the Eibishter. And his two prized sons, his two sons who were so incredible, Nadav and Avihu are much higher than Elazar and Isamar. Elazar and Isamar, relative, Nadav and Avihu were considered normal, are plucked out of his life because they brought a carbon, whatever. There's a whole bunch of explanations what it was that they did wrong. And Aaron was devastated. And the Eibishter tells Moshe Rabbeinu, tell Aaron he cannot mourn at all. No avelis. He has to be b'simcha. He's with avoid in the Beis HaMikdash. He's the Kohen Gadol. He has to come to work and do his job, and he'll let other people cry for him. In the midst of that scheme, there's a very important pasuk. Moshe Rabbeinu says to Aaron HaKohen, I knew that when the Beis HaMikdash was going to be built, a very big tzaddik was going to die. I knew it. I knew that when the Eibush was going to build this Beis HaMikdash, some very holy person was going to die, and that holy person's death is called B'kroivei HaKaddish. The death of a tzaddik is going to sober everybody. It's going to bring a seriousness to everybody as the Eibishter moves into the Beis HaMikdash. And Moshe says, I wasn't sure if it was you or me. And now I see that it's not you, it's not me, it's your sons. And when Moshe Rabbeinu was saying to Aaron HaKohen in a form of nichum, in a form of consolation, your two sons who just passed away are higher than you and me, because they're the karbonos that the Eibishter took to bring a kedusha, to bring an earnestness to the Eibishter living in the Beis HaMikdash. And the Torah says, Vayidem Aaron. Aaron does not respond. Aaron is silent. And the Chazal say, Rashi says that Kibul Schar al Shtikasei. Aaron had so many reasons to protest. It was such a difficult moment. And Aaron was quiet. There's a Jew in Lubavitch. This is a story that you can see on video. His name was Rabbi Chaim Gutnik Olav Shalom. He has grandchildren in this yeshiva, I think. And he was here in 1992, the winter of the stroke. And one Sunday, the Rebbe asks him, your wife is here? He says, no, I left her in Australia. But it was strange when the Rebbe asked him that question. So he brought her from Australia. She came to America and almost immediately, so she landed, she was killed in a bus accident. It was, the Rebbe went to her levaya, I think. It was very surreal. The Rebbe asked him, the Rebbe never asked him before, did you bring your wife? No. So he brought her. So there was obviously a levaya and there was shiva. It was a very upsetting story. The following Sunday he walked by dollars and the Rebbe gave him $1. And the Rebbe says to him, you're not saying anything. My man just lost his wife so suddenly. It was such a shock. You're not saying anything. Chaim Gutnick was a kohen. So he told the Rebbe, Ich bin mekayim vayidem aren. I am fulfilling the biblical command, the biblical suggestion, the biblical inference of being quiet. Or to say it in the language of America, which all of us understand, if you have nothing smart to say, don't say it here. Have you ever gone to shiva houses? Especially tragic ones? If you want to hear stupid things, go to shiva houses. People say the most brilliantly idiotic things. And the reason is, because they think they have to say something. They have no idea what they should say, so they say just whatever's coming out of their mind and their heart as it's all confused. When you go into a shiva house, all you need to do is show up. It doesn't say any place that we walk into shiva house, you should make speeches and be angry at God, then protest God. Just be there. That's what you got to do. If you have something intelligent to say, which means something wise, then you say it. Otherwise, you keep your mouth shut. The amount of words that people spill at occasions like these that are so not helpful, and if they're not helpful, they're usually the opposite of helpful, is profound. Because people are trying to figure out, so what am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to say? And the answer is, you don't know what to say? Just be quiet. You know what? Just be quiet. That's the smartest thing you could possibly do. Because this situation doesn't have words. There are no words to address a situation like this. There is no way to fix this with words. There's no way to fix this at all. Being quiet is admitting that. Just being quiet. When the Eibishter punches you in the nose, you're quiet. Now, you could protest. Somebody will protest. Somebody should protest. You have to have the right kind of person for the protest. But to react, when Hashem does these kinds of things, the correct reaction is silence. It's the only reaction. It's the only intelligent reaction. When people go through tragedy, you feel it. You don't explain it. You don't fix it. You just sit in the moment. That's what Avelus is. Avelus, the week of mourning, which is Halach and Shulchan Aruch, is about being sad. The point of being sad means just feeling the pain, not fixing it, not explaining it. And there's an incredibly powerful message in Aaron's reaction. The Eibush does something to him which is the worst thing Hashem could do to any father. And Aaron is quiet. And not that Aaron is quiet. The truth is, Aaron's silence is seen as a sign of his betachon and the moon of the Eibush. It's that also. Aaron's silence is simply the right reaction. It's the right way to react. There's nothing to say, don't say it. That's my first point. Now my second point, and the points are very overlapping. I'm not promising you that every point is crisply separated from the point before and the point after. There's a guarantee, there's 100% guarantee, okay? Unless you're Serach Basoshet and maybe somebody like that. The most dangerous thing any person can do for life is be born. You know why? Because everybody dies. There's 100% death rate. That's the Eibush made the world. Now, why? What do you mean why? Because when the Eibush made the world, I'm speaking Torah now, not physics, he divided the world into two kinds of things. Some things that he made last from the beginning of creation till the end of the creation, like the sun, like the moon, like the stars. This is called kayamin be'ish. The very body that was put in the sky on the first or the fourth day of creation, whatever it is still up there. Then there's something called kayamin be'min. Kayamin be'min means the different species of animal and lyhadus man that the Eibishter made also exist forever. But not one animal lives forever, not one person lives forever, the species live forever. We procreate, we grow up, we get married, we have children, we live a long time, and then at some point, we make space for our children, as the Eibishter made the world. I spent about 45 minutes looking for a Gemara, and I was not able to find it. I got my son involved, he couldn't find it either. There's a Gemara that says that one of the Ameroyim said it's very important not to live too long. Because if you live too long, your children never get a chance to lead. The Eibishter made the world that death is a part of life. It's perfectly normal. Everybody dies. If any of you own a pet, now if you own a parakeet, he's going to live as long as you, yeah? But if you own a cat or a dog, the life expectancy 15, 20 years. If you live 80 years, you have 3 or 4 dogs. You know, the dog lives, gets old, and dies. Next one, Nakapoodle. That's how they made the world. Everything is... So you would think that it's such a simple part of reality, we should all be accustomed to it. It's just why they made the world. Everybody's born, everybody grows up, everybody has children, they age, and it's a cycle of life, how the Eibishter made it. And yet, you're never prepared for it. You're never comfortable with it. And it's never right. It's a funny thing. Even if a person lives 100 years, and he was healthy, and he didn't become chas v'sholem senile in his old age, and he passed away in relatively good health, and he didn't suffer before he passed away, death is always a shock. Death is, as much as you're prepared for it, death is always a shock. Always. There's a Yiddish expression, "Netoken alta tate, netoken alta mama." There's no such thing as an old mother. Your mother's never old, which means whenever your mother passes, even if she's 125 years old, you're upset. Why? My mother? Everybody knows it's going to happen. Everybody knows it's the cycle of life, and nobody has a way of making it into normal. You know why? Because it doesn't fit. As much as it makes sense, as much as it's biologically true, as much as it's scientifically true, as much as it's factual, it doesn't make sense. Life is so rich. And life is so engaged. Life is so connected. And death is so final. No? Person passes away, they're not coming back. That's it, finished. It's a very funny thing. You know what's going to happen. It's inevitable that it's going to happen. And when it happens, it's always something that we're not able to make sense out of. That's how the Eibishter made it. And there's different ways of interpreting that fact. What I just told you is a fact. If death makes sense to a person, there's something wrong with his personhood. A human being has to be uncomfortable with the concept of death, no matter how correct it is. This death that we just experienced is not correct at all. A healthy young man who was a truly nice man, you know that? He was, Mendy Raitbart was a nice guy. He loved to do favors. He got pleasure from helping people. It was his nature. And he was killed tragically and painfully and so abruptly. But even the most reasonable death, the Eibishter made it that when it happens, it sobers you. And if it doesn't, you're sick. You're smart and not wise. The Rambam writes that whenever a person dies, it's a message to his family and to his friends and to his contemporaries. What's called Ben Gil, the people of his generation. The guy could live 100 years in perfect health, and he saw all the brachas in the world. When a person dies, it's a message. It's a message. Life is finite. Take advantage of it. And if a person says, yeah, we knew it was going to happen. If you truly are not sobered, if you're truly not shocked, if you're truly not disturbed by a death, you're not in touch with your own humanity. You become a machine, you become a computer. Computers can understand life, computers can understand death, but they can't experience this idea that death is always not good. It's always wrong. No matter how reasonable and orderly and predictable it's a shock. Always. This, what we experience now, is a shock beyond words. And you're supposed to be shocked. Torah says, when the Chazal say, Meis echad min hachapura, if a member of a community, a group passes away, the whole group has to wake up and do tshuva. When the Rebbetzin passed away, the whole year, the Rebbe said thousands of times, Mistama. You knew the Rebbetzin, you heard about the Rebbetzin, you heard that she passed away. Take to heart. It's a message. Well, I don't understand. Everybody died, you're right. But the very nature of death is something that, as much as we know about it, shocks us. It's supposed to shock us. It's supposed to disturb us. It's supposed to be unsettled, and we're supposed to react to it in that way. It's a tighter message. And that's my second point. My first point is that we react to death with silence. Not because we don't want to speak apocryphis or stupidity, which are very good reasons to keep quiet, but because that's the only response. And I'm telling you, guys, you can go Menachem Ovel. I saw many of you by the Levaya. If you haven't gone to Menachem Ovel, you will go to Menachem Ovel. You have no obligation to say anything. You feel uncomfortable? You should. This is very uncomfortable. This would be uncomfortable if you were 85 and Avremi was 86 and his father was 104. It would be uncomfortable then too. And it's okay to be uncomfortable. You have to show up. Being present. And being present not on your phone, but being present the kind of way that your body language says, I don't know what to say, but whatever is supposed to be said, I'm saying. That's all you have to do. That's Nicham Avelim. And the second point is that Api Torah, you're not supposed to be comfortable with that. Death is always supposed to be a shock, no matter when it happens. Especially in cases like this. And then there's a third point. And I'm going to say it not the way I wrote it on my notes, I'm going to say it backwards. When a person passes away, we say Kaddish. Yiskadal v'yiskada shmei Rabba. Now, I know Hebrew, you know. I didn't always know Hebrew, but now I know Hebrew. Whenever I go to a Levaya, and there's a freshly dug grave, and the Yeshayimim, the sons, or whoever it is, gets up by the grave, and he says, Yiskadal v'yiskada shmei Rabba. It just really, it upsets me. Do you know what Kaddish is? Does anybody know what Kaddish is? I'm asking you a simple question. Does anybody know what Kaddish is about? Praising God. Is that what you were going to say? Praising God. A guy died and you're praising God? Thank you very much. In the entire Kaddish, there is one word, one, that speaks to Avelis. And that's the word v'nechamosa. Le'elam v'chosav v'shirasav v'nechamosa. Nechama means nechama. And in some nuschos they don't even have the word v'nechamosa. And what's crazy about it is, I spent 2 years teaching Kaddish. Here in the Machon. If you do research on Kaddish, you will find out that the original saying Kaddish was Kaddish Yosem. Was for a boy who didn't know how to daven. He didn't know Hebrew. Rabbi Akiva tracked him down, and he saw that his father's neshama, this boy's father's neshama, was in the worst place, and he schlepped the kid into the shul. The kid didn't read Hebrew, so he told him how to pray in the native language, which is Aramaic. Yizgadol Yizkadosh Meirabah. The original Kaddish was not part of davening. That was added later. The original Kaddish was for an orphan who couldn't daven. The two earliest sources of Kaddish are for people who can't learn Gemara. They learn only Medrash, learn stories. Kaddish de Rabbanon. And for a child who couldn't daven, he said a Kaddish Yosem. Those are the earliest Kaddishim that we have, that there's a record of. Later on, they realized how powerful Kaddish is, so they put it all over the davening. Before Haidub, before Baruch Hu, after Shmoneh Esrei. But originally, Kaddish was for an orphan. A kid loses his father, he says, it's Kaddish Meirabah. I know a man, he told me personally. He's a Baal Tshuva. And his father was very intelligent, very smart. His father grew up in South America. He moved to Eretz Yisrael. He lived his adult life in Israel. And my friend was born in Israel. He grew up in Israel. He became a Baal Tshuva. He lives in Crown Heights. He's someone that I know. He told me that his father lived in, I don't know what country it was, let's say it was Venezuela, wherever he lived. This going back probably before the war. Maybe not, but a very, very long time ago. His father was 14. He wasn't from. But his father died, his mother said, go to say Kaddish. He went to Shul Kaddish. It was a Sephardi community, a bunch of Alta Yidden, old Jews, and he asked them every day, can you tell me what Kaddish means? And nobody would. I don't think they didn't tell him what Kaddish meant because they were afraid how it would react. They probably didn't know themselves what it meant. It took him 3 months to find the guy who Pashut knew the title of the words. And the guy translated Kaddish for him, and he never said a Kaddish again for the rest of his life. You take my father and I should tell you, great? It's to me, it's very powerful. When you saw him get up over a freshly dug grave, he says, Gadol Yiskadish Meirabe. There's no word to describe how powerful that is. It's extremely powerful. But this is what Jews do. This is what Jews do. You come to a man with a massive like this, he's Gadol Yiskadish Meirabe. Now this Levaya was in Nissen. And in Nissen we don't say Tachnun. And we don't say Tachnun, there's a prayer that's called Tzadek Adin, which we do not say either. I don't know how many Levayas you've been to. I'm sure you've been to fewer Levayas than I've been, at least I hope so. But if you've been to more than 1 or 2 Levayas, there's a page that they had that at the cemetery, and the Chaver Kaddish always takes the page back. They don't want you to hold on to it. On that page, you have a Kapitel Tilim, Kapitel Memtes, which we said. And if it wouldn't have been Nissen, we would say Tzadek Adin. Tzadek Adin is accepting Hashem's judgment. There's different schayos of Tzadek Adin. The entire Tzadek Adin is scriptural. It's all Tanakh. It's psukim. There's not one Gemara, there's not one Medrash, there's not one Chazal. It's strictly psukim. It starts with the pasuk in Ha'azinu. Hatzur tamim pol lekichol derach of mishpat keil amuna ve'ei novel tzadik v'yasharu. Hatzur, the Eibush says tzur, right? Tzur means what? A rock. Tamim pol, what he does is perfect. Keil amuna, he's a God that you can trust. Ve'ei novel, there's no evil. Right? Tzadik v'yasharu, he's righteous and he's fair. You accept Hashem's judgment. That's the type. That's the type Tzadek Adin. And by Levaya, you read every pasuk in the entire Tanakh. You know, they finish it, if you've ever seen it. Hashem Nasan, Hashem Lokach, Yehi Shem Hashem Mevoirach B'yata V'adoi. That's what we say in the Levaya. Hashem gave, Hashem took. May the name of God be blessed forever and ever. This is what everybody says, including the Yosemim and the Almana. Now in Chaddishness we're not allowed to be sad, so we don't say Tzadek Adin. But Kaddish is Tzadek Adin. The Eibush that punches you in the stomach and your answer is, God is great. It's so, again, it's not, you see, if you say it's wrong and it's evil and it's insensitive and it's a lie, it's childish. It's going back, thank you, it's going back to the original point. We're forgetting that death under the best of conditions is intolerable. Part of life is death, and it's not supposed to make sense. If a person thinks that death makes sense, they're not a person, they're a computer. And Baya Levaya, that's what you do. Yiskadlo v'yiskadash. The Yosem gets up. And he says, at that moment, the moment of maximum avedus, Yiskadlo v'yiskadash, the Eibish's name, it should be great and holy. It's not only because we don't want Hashem to be angry at us. It's not only because we don't want to say apokursis, we're something heretical. There was a Jew in Eretz Yisrael, his name was Rabbi Nekech. He was a Isha Lekim Mamish. Rabbi Nekech was the holy Belzerov, the Behilika Belzerov, who passed away in 1957. The Belzer Rebbe lost 63 immediate family members. That means his wife, his children-in-law, and grandchildren-in-law, and some great-grandchildren-in-law. 63! You know why he didn't lose any more? Because he had no more to lose. He survived alone. He would never talk about the Holocaust. Never. He didn't even light yahrzeit candles for them. He kept different yahrzeits. For children who died before the war, for siblings who died before the war, he made yahrzeits. For the Kaddoshim, it's like he didn't do anything. And he would never discuss the Holocaust. Never. And the reason that he gave was, I'm afraid I'll say a bad word about God. The Frierdiker Rebbe said bad words about God after the war. This was his approach. It's not the pshat, he doesn't want to say a bad word about God that he was going to punish him. It's the pshat that when things happen, that God does, that our brain cannot tolerate, we got two choices. We can fire God. You're a bad, I don't like you. Why? I don't understand you. To me, you're acting in a way that doesn't make any sense. Or you could appreciate that at this moment you have to realize you just met him for the first time. You think you know what God is? Now you know what God is. He's so big and he's so powerful and his perspective is so different that part of what he does is this. In other words, people think they have a relationship with the Eibishter like they have with their parents, or with their employers, or with their spouse. You're dealing with the Eibishter. You're dealing with the Eibishter. The Eibishter you can't understand. You discover it now. Of course you accept Hashem. You accept Hashem because he's not going away. If you're going to be angry at the Eibush, he's going to disappear. If you're going to be like the Eibush, he's going to be happier. He's God. You discover what it means, God. When God does things to us, to you, to someone that you know, that are so big, you have no ability to process it. So you say, Yisgadol, Yisgadesh Meirab. I don't understand. I don't agree. But this is God. Yisgadol, Yisgadesh Meirab. That's what this is. That's what Kaddish is. Kaddish is the recognition that this is something that I have no idea how to understand, I have no idea how to process, and God did this. And it's not like God is wrong, or God is small, or God made a mistake, God wasn't paying attention. I have a sense now of how much of a sense I don't have of what Hashem is. And that's what you say in the Levaya. That's what Kaddish is. It's the admission that Hashem is so big that this is part of Hashem. And I acknowledge that. I always tell people, this is, unfortunately, when you have a situation like this, young kids, I was at the Levaya, I'm sure some people also, 8 brothers, they stood, they pushed and held each other up. They stood together. It feels like you're holding one another. Do they have a right to have kindness to the Eibishter? Of course they have a right. And what's the Eibishter going to tell them? What's he going to tell them? The Eibishter does what the Eibishter has to do. To know God is to be God. And until we're God, that's all we can do is say is God. God doesn't mean I understand. God doesn't mean I agree. God means he's God. He's the Eibishter. And that's a third part of the Jewish response to death. And there's 2 parts to it. One is to appreciate at this moment that Hashem is so big that this is part of him. I am not big enough to master it, but I'm able to accept that he does. And the other part of that is accepting Hashem's judgment. As you know, that by a levaya you make a bracha. You tear your clothing, you make a bracha. Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam. Dayan emes, or dayan ha-emes. The judgment of truth. You don't say chesed. He's not kind. Today he's not kind. He's not kind at all. Right? If you do well, you say Eshachayanu. If you do well by yourself, your own successes, you have no partners, you say Atoiv Ameitiv, you say Hashem is good. When you have a levaya, you say a bracha with Hashem's name. Baruch atah Adonai Hashem Elokeinu melech hadayin emes. The Eibush is the God of truth, the judge of truth. What's the truth? What's the truth? Anybody know what the truth is? The truth hurts. The truth hurts. It doesn't become not true because it hurts. It hurts, but it's the truth. We don't like the truth, right? I tell you, I taught Tanya to teenagers for decades. And when I got to chapter 26, where the Alter Rebbe talks about suffering, I did it every year. I would ask my students, so which would you prefer? The truth or kindness? I was talking to 16-year-old teenagers. Oh, I want the whole truth. In 15 minutes, they all changed their mind. Forget the truth. Just be nice to me. You understand? You want the truth? You want the truth? You want to know the truth? You want to know what the Eibishter knows? You don't want to know. I promise you don't want to know. And in Levaya, you acknowledge this is not part of Hashem's kindness. It's not something that I can internalize. This is part of Hashem's truth. It's called tzaddik adin, accepting the Eibishter's judgment. So it's either 3 or 4 points that I just shared. Torah says when you have a loss, you shut your mouth. Nothing is going to come out if you open it. Torah says there's no such thing as a comfortable death. It's not allowed to be comfortable. If death is comfortable, you're not a healthy human being. And Torah sees that at these moments we say God is great. It's God love is Kaddish Me'Rabba. Because now we understand that we don't understand at all what Hashem means. We have a relationship with Him. And usually He's kind, but not always. And at those moments when He's not kind, now we say, oh, this is the Eibishter. So when He's nice to me, that niceness is coming from this God. He's God of His Kaddish Me'Rabba. Okay, questions or comments?
What's our approach?
This is our approach.
Silence.
You don't have to be happy, but you have to accept. I forgot to say this to finish. I told Yusaimim years ago, I said to them, when you're the angriest with God, you need Him the most. You know, you want to say, okay, I'm so angry with you, I'm not keeping mitzvahs. Who are you hurting? I'm angry with you, I'm done with you. Yeah, okay? The only thing we have to lean on is the Eibishter. And we never need Him more than at such moments. So you can be angry, you can scream all you want. You can curse Him, you can be angry with Him. But you're not going to hurt the Eibishter if you divorce Him. You can hurt only yourself. It's foolish, it's a mistake. This is the first half of my speech, okay? This is only the first half.
Really that it's part of someone's process, like a child to kind of throw that tantrum at God. Letting out whatever needs to be let out. It's like a relationship.
That's not Jewish, that's American.
I'm not talking about Jewish, American. I'm saying, do you think that's important in someone's process or not?
I'll say it again. That is not Jewish, that is American. The Rebbe's mother lost her husband, Rabbi Leivik, at the end of the Second World War. 2 of her sons had left Russia. Her 3rd son was murdered by the Nazis, and now her husband passes away. She's alone in the world. And she's fashikt in Asia. She's so far away from civilization, you have no idea. When he passed away, the whole Chabad community that was in Almaty came to the house. And there was a woman who 50 years later tells the story. She walked into the house. She was an 18-year-old girl. It's August 1944. You know what that means, August 1944? Death was for breakfast, death was for lunch, and death was... Everybody had death. Everybody had death. Some people lost everybody, some people lost some bodies, some people lost most bodies. Death was breakfast, lunch, and supper. And this 18-year-old girl, her last name was Altais, walked into the Rebbe's mother's house and began to scream hysterically. She lost it. She melted down. I don't think she cried only for the loss of Rabbi Leivik. She cried for the Holocaust. It was the middle of the war. By 1944 August, Germany was no longer inside Russia. They'd been kicked, but now the Jews are finding out how many millions were killed in Russia. And the Rebbe's mother, who had just lost her husband, her whole world was dark, turns around to this girl and she says to her, Jews don't scream. Jews don't scream. They don't. You by the Levaya? We accept. We're quiet. There's no process to this.
I don't think just to clarify, you don't mean not to mourn.
You must mourn.
Right.
It's allowing for the experience you're going through to really sit in you with that experience. If I'm feeling that feeling right now, to really sit with it so that I can come to a place of silence and calmness and clarity.
So you don't have to become hysterical. You don't become hysterical.
I'm not saying someone needs that, but I think that it's very necessary for a person when that comes up.
I'm saying it again. Jews don't respond to loss this way.
Okay? Yeah.
We accept. You know why we accept? Because the emotions are not going to make it understood. I'm answering you with your own words.
It doesn't need to be understood.
Sometimes you need to let it out.
It needs to be accepted.
It's not a logical process. It shouldn't be understood.
It's an effort at a logical process. It's an effort as trying to deal with it as it is. You can't. That's why Avelus is controlled. Go ahead.
I wouldn't say it's controlled. I'd say it's
Yeah.
So I've seen there was one shiva house I was at that was really interesting. That the way that the parents dealt with it was a very tragic death. The son, I was friends with him. He just suddenly, I don't know, it's not suddenly. He struggled with it for a long time. But he just like overdosed, laying in front of a gas station. It was very tragic. But the way that they dealt with it, first I expected to go there and it would be like, naturally I would be super sad, crying. They accepted it right away. They were just like, no, he's in a better place, and we'll see when Mashiach comes. And they didn't even look sad at all. And like,
See, but that's also wrong.
that seems like it, no?
It's also wrong. Because that's fixing it with the brain. That's managing it. That's controlling it. You're not supposed to manage it. You're not supposed to control it. You're supposed to let it be.
That's why it always is like the dumbest thing for like,
When you explain it and you logically resolve it, what you're doing is not accepting the fact that a death is never supposed to make sense. If you make sense out of a death, you haven't experienced a death. It's using your intellectual mind, not your wisdom mind.
But I think Menachem was saying that letting it be, what if you freak out? And if I just let myself be, my natural state, maybe that's what I'm saying also, like I'm just going to get angry.
You are angry.
Like if you ball it up inside, then that can make it work.
You see, this whole idea is psychology. It's not Torah.
Right.
It's not.
Does it mean it's hate the
Yes. It doesn't even work. People who try to solve their emotions by giving their emotions out, the more you give out, the more you want to give out. It's just not true. And that would be true even if the pain that you were dealing with was a normal pain, like losing money.
That weren't true.
But a death,
Rabbi,
if you're going to try and resolve a death by letting your emotions out, it doesn't end. This idea that America says if you get your feelings out, you're going to heal, it's Heipach HaTorah. It says in Chassidus, you learned it or not, Rabbi Levi, that the Sefer Chassidim says when a person is angry, they should be quiet. Every psychologist says, you're angry, go into a closed room and scream. So you have two choices. You can listen to the Torah, listen to the psychologist. Psychologists will tell you that you get the anger out by expressing it. Torah says the more you give voice to the anger, the more angry you become.
Does that have to be like 100% like black and white? Like you don't let it out at all? Or
You see, you're missing the point. You're letting out the pain. You're just not screaming. You're mourning. You're crying. You're broken. Silence is not I don't care. It's I'm so sad I can't speak. But I have nothing to say. This is too big for me. You think I'm saying you shouldn't feel. I'm not saying you shouldn't feel. I'm saying you shouldn't emote.
what about hysterical sobbing?
You cry, you cry. You can't stop yourself from crying. But
Hysterical.
so you cry, you cry. You stop you from crying. Avelus is sad. But the essence of it is it's not reasonable. And we're not trying to make sense out of it. We're not. We're accepting it. And that, you go to a Jewish funeral. Jewish funerals are incredibly peaceful. Go to non-Jewish funerals. Even Freie Yidden, you know that? This we have in common with the Reform. Jewish funerals are not circumstances, people that get up on mics and make speeches about politics and anti-Semitism. A Jewish funeral is a funeral. A person was killed by Goyim. You don't use the funeral as a platform to scream about anti-Semitism. A funeral is a funeral. Speak about anti-Semitism tomorrow. Right now, you're mourning the loss of a person, and we do it respectfully. We do it quietly.
Okay, so you said that I should accept death.
Not I should accept death. We do accept death.
We do.
You know why you do accept death? What's the reason?
It happens to everyone.
Because there's no alternative. There's no other way. You can't own it. And if you try to own it, then you're completely forgetting what death is. You're owning the death more by saying I can't own it than by trying to own it.
Can you repeat that?
You're gaining control over the loss more by accepting that you can't control it than by actually trying to control it.
How can I accept it without feeling like I'm just like, I feel like if I accept death, then I'll just stop caring about death.
Why?
Because
Accept that doesn't mean I agree with it. I'm devastated. I feel the pain of not being in control. Totally. I experience that pain. And I let it be. I let it be.
So we're supposed to just sit with that pain?
Yeah. That's right. That's called Avelis. That's correct.
Why is that the right thing to do?
Because it's the only thing to do.
There's no other way.
No. Certainly according to the Torah. You want to cry, cry. You want to scream, scream. But don't scream so that you think that that's going to help you.
It's part of the process. Not helping.
It's not part of the process. The idea that a person feels that I have to make a lot of noise to somehow fix myself is just not true. If you make a lot of noise, you make a lot of noise. But you don't do it to fix. You're supposed to experience it. You're supposed to experience the pain. That's it. However you express that is fine. But you're supposed to sit in the pain, not manage it. Not try to figure it out. Not try to solve it.
Same way, like someone sits in the pain can, and starts crying. Like someone can sit in the pain and start screaming.
Yeah, I have no issue with that.